Hello, hello, and welcome to True Faith's Full-Time Whistle with me, Adam. It's finished at St James's Park. It's finished Newcastle United 1, Wolves 1, Jamal Lascelles in the first half, Johnny in the second half after a Dubravka fumble, and Sean Longstaff, who had a really good first half of the game, ended up seeing red for a high challenge. Newcastle, under Bruce, held out for the draw, but it's yet another game that was flat in terms of atmosphere. There was a lot of intention and effort, but we're still seeing the same things. We're still seeing a lack of potency in the final third. There's still baby steps in terms of how we counterattack. There's no fluidity there. You know, the only sort of game plan that we seem to have was, and I thought they were very effective at doing this, was saint-maximin, who had a really excellent game, I thought. He had a stormer. He was, again, just sometimes missing that final, that final ball or that final shot. But he definitely caused problems with their defence. And, Willy Bolly was out for them. Cher was out for us. Carroll was ruled out as well. So Joe Linton was, retained his place again. But you look at saint-maximin and Almiron being able to drive from deep early on in that, certainly in that first half. And that sort of put us in the ascendancy. That gave us, we were able to hold possession a lot better today, I thought. Again, a lot of these I'm caveating with the fact that it was mainly in that first half. The second half was a different story. Wolves sort of started to turn the screw a bit. They looked like their old self. But they were poor as well. Two fairly poor teams who were struggling to even test opposition goalkeepers. I think there was about 5 shots on target in the entire game. There was very few. And we're just lacking. We're just lacking spark. We're lacking goals. If we could sum up Steve Bruce after 10 games, we were told, let's give him 10 games. Let's see where we are after 10 games. Well, we'll see where we are after 10 games, and we are sitting in 17th. We've got 9 points from 10 games. That's not even a point a game. You could caveat with that, the fact that we've played, Chelsea, Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal, Man United. We've got a couple of good results off those teams. However, you look at Brighton, you look at Watford, you look at Norwich, you look at Wolves today. They're teams that we should be getting points at, home and away. If we have any design to stay in this league, scoring very few goals, scoring very, very few goals. I think we've scored about 6 goals. We're conceding, relatively low amount at home. That was only the 3rd goal we've conceded at home this season, but we just look blunt and toothless up front. Almiron and saint-maximin, as I've said before, did cause trouble when they were driving directly at the Wolves' defence. But Joe Linton has been isolated ever since he started under Bruce. And for whatever reason, his confidence has now... Well, I know not for whatever reason, but the tactics don't seem to suit his style of play. His confidence is low because of this. And now... What I'm saying, and as much as in the first few games, a lot of it wasn't his fault. He had no service to work off. We've been a little bit better at that in the last few games, but for me, he's not applying himself. He's not getting the basics right, and his attitude is starting to sort of sour the team, blaming other players for him not being able to control a ball. Just not showing the effort and desire that's required to lead a line in the way that Rondon is. It's impossible to compare him to Rondon because Rondon's so experienced and just so much better at that role in terms of that target man and holding up and being able to... He was a linchpin last season, Rondon, but Joe Linton has not had the same impact. We knew it was going to take time for him to integrate, and that's probably still happening right now. However, with Carroll injured, we're now in a position as, do we start Dwight Gale? And when you spend £40 million on a striker, purely out of, this is from a Mike Ashley era. This is a regime that wants to buy Joe Linton for 40 million in the hope that we can sell him for 60 million in 2 years' time. We refused to buy Rondon, despite him being exactly what we needed, and despite him being player of the year. We refused to pay his wages because he's a 30-year-old and the transfer fee. Yet you're looking at it now and you think, where is there really value for money in this? I thought Willems had probably his best game in a black and white shirt. I thought he was absolutely excellent, potentially man of the match for me, in terms of ball recoveries, in terms of tackles. He was winning everything in the air that he went for. His touch was just bang on today. I thought he was excellent. Kieran Clark had another superb game. He almost showed everybody up. He did get a yellow card for that wild lunge on Adama Traore, who once they pushed him forward in the second half was a lot more effective. We'd blunted that, his pace and his threat in that first half. However, they pushed him forward in a sort of front two with Raul Jimenez, and maybe Jota on the side. So maybe it was like a 3-4-3, but it was a bit like the Man City game when Adama Traore was pushed forward. He was a lot more potent, and he ended up winning the game in that game. And he was just a different player in that second half. And Wolves were a different team in that second half. Our goal was really, really well worked. It was a recycled ball. Longstaff got a cross in deep. It went out towards the corner. Fernandez, who had been up for the corner, whipped a beautiful ball in, and I'm delighted that he got in ahead of Cher. Sorry, instead of Cher, simply because his, I remember last season behind Lejeune, he was our second best defender in those early games, and it's very easy to forget that now because he's sort of been out in the cold for so long. But he had a pretty decent return game as well today. But his whipped cross and Lascelles shows Joe Linton how to attack a ball, how to attack a football with desire and determination. And it's between two defenders, I might add, and smashed the ball home into the back of the net. It was a wonderful moment. At that point, the game was sort of fairly balanced, but maybe we probably deserved it just on merit. But we knew the onslaught was going to come. We did waste a couple of chances. Almiron had that chance through. Great ball through from Matty Longstaff. Sean Longstaff had a really, really good first half, as I said before, but that red card, it just made at the end of the game, well, you're kind of hoping, well, let's just try and hang on. And it's such a shame. It just feels so flat and unsatisfying that we've played a very indifferent and out of form Wolves side here, and they've matched us toe to toe. And even like when we went down to 10 men, they couldn't even break us down. They couldn't get us there when we had a man down, and they have the attacking qualities that they do. I just think they were there for the taking. They tried to shuffle things around in that second half. Den Donker came back in the centre back. Doherty, could have won the game in the final minute again. That would have been history coming back to bite us on the arse as well. But it just feels unconvincing under Bruce. And yes, we've had a couple of good wins, but even those wins against Spurs and Man U didn't really exercise attacking flair and threat. They were one-offs. They were sort of like, they were as frequent as Willems' goal against Liverpool. It was like just one counter-attack, one goal. We didn't score from counter-attack today, but it just feels unconvincing for me. And it seems like even the wins we scrape, constant 1-1 draws, constant draws at home is just, regardless of what's happened in this game today, regardless of how good or bad Wolves are, though, the fact that they're not top six and the fact that they've been distracted by Europa League means that we should be looking to take the game to them. We should be winning this game if we have any designs to stay in the Premier League, regardless of the red card, regardless of any of that. I think the game should have been, if we were more effective going forward, then the game would have been done by the time Longstaff gets his red card. And I'm not condoning that. It was silly. There was no malice in it, but it was reckless, and it was probably the right decision. I would have been calling for the same if it had happened, if a Wolves player had done that to one of our players. But there's there's just a sort of emptiness. It's not good enough. Draws at home aren't good enough against a poor Wolves side, a poor Brighton side, and a poor Watford side. That's 3 points from 9. And that's the difference that could be the difference between us staying in the division or not. This is not a coherent side. We had a pretty strong side out today, and we should have seen Wolves off when we saw they didn't have the threat. But we allowed them to get back into the game second half. We weren't getting in their faces as much. They started to dominate a lot more. Yes, we ended the game with a lot more possession than we're used to, about 43%, probably largely part to that first half. But even when we had possession, we weren't doing a lot with it. You know, a couple of shots on target is not good enough. It's at home. No wonder the atmosphere was flat. And yes, it's a bit of sort of chicken and egg. The crowd needs to rile up the players to get them playing. The players need to perform to get the fans excited. But there was very little of that. Saint-Maximin and Yedlin and Almiron on the attack with their pace, and Willems to an extent as well. They were the moments that sort of raised the roof a little bit. But even then, what are we even clinging on to? There's very little for us to hang our hat onto in these games. It is not good enough. We have to change things up. Bruce has to change things up. I didn't think he was reactive enough today. He left it very, very late to bring on Gale and Shelvey just to try something different. I don't know where we go from here. I don't know how, after this 10 games, anybody can be convinced that we are going to go on a good run, where we're going to, win 2 games back to back, that we are going to, if we're going to draw every game, we will not stay in the division. That is not good enough. Steve Bruce cannot dine out on wins against Spurs and Man United at all if he's not going to be beating the teams that we should be beating, the teams that would have been around us in that middle third. This is an opportunity at this stage in the season to sort of get ourselves out of the relegation battle and into that middle third where everything's still really compact. If we beat Wolves today, we'd be level on points with them, and that's where it is. But instead, we're not. We're 17th, and we're looking around for ideas. What happens next? Steve Bruce, over to you, mate. How do you change it up? We need to score more goals. You are not Rafa Benitez. You will not be able to get us 13th. We didn't score enough goals last season, and we finished 13th because of Rafa Benitez. Steve Bruce is not Rafa Benitez. He cannot deliver us that. He has to change it up, and he has to change it up fast, or he's not going to last very long in this game, because we are going down if we don't score goals and win games. It's as simple as that. I'm going to leave it there. I've been Adam of the Full-Time Whistle. Please subscribe to the True Faith YouTube channel if you haven't already. Comments below as always, and we'll see you next time for the next episode. Cheers. Bye. Bye.